Good morning, friends. I done a teaching. Uh, I figured that out. It'll be in 2 weeks, which will be my birthday, November 27th. It would make 25 years that I done this teaching, and Isaiah 45:7, and I taught it wrong. And I would just happen to go over some of my own notes, because I keep a lot of notes, and I realized I taught it wrong. And I apologize for that, because I'm going to stand before God and everything I ever said in any way might have an effect upon your life. So if I ever said anything wrong and I realize it, I'm going to correct it. But you take 25 years ago, I have grown in knowledge over that, and especially in Isaiah, where prophetic language is used, and it's really a lot hard to understand prophetic language and how they speak. It's almost like these police officers that try to study serial killers to get into the mind of a. It's almost just as hard to understand prophetic language and how it is used in Isaiah. But I want to give you Isaiah 45:7 and how I taught it. How I taught it wrong first, then give you the correction. I went Isaiah 47 when it says, I form the light and created darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. And I explained the Hebrew word for the word evil, which is ra. Right? The same Hebrew word is found to be calamity in Psalms 141:5. If you look at the word calamity up there and the word evil, same Hebrew number. It's anniversary in 1 Samuel 10:19. And it means grief in Nehemiah 2:17. In other words, if you see the word, when you go to Nehemiah in 2:17 with the word grief, it will be the same word for that word evil in Isaiah 45:7. It means afflictions in Numbers 11:11, a mystery in Ecclesiastes 8:6. And this is what I said about that. Isaiah 45:7 is referring to the fact that God has set natural laws into effect. The law of sowing and reaping. I use Galatians 6:7. God did not create sin, but the result of sin has brought these things into our lives. I said some other things, but I'm going to stop there. And what I said, now listen carefully, what I said is correct of the law of sowing and reaping. But I took a verse out of context and saying something else. And that is important to know, just because I know this is where cult teachers are just plain Bible false teachers. They would give you a verse out of context, but explaining it in another way, and once you hook to that, they got you let off on a whole different course. See, and basically, I'm using my own mistake to show you how that is done. See how I use Isaiah 45:7, where I said, I form the light and creative darkness, I make peace and create evil, and I explain all the meanings of that word evil. And I said how Isaiah 45:7 is referring to the fact that God has set natural laws into effect, which is true, the law of sowing and reaping. And that God did not create sin, but the result of sin has brought these things into our lives. That's all true, but it's out of context with Isaiah 45:7. And a lot of false teachers use this methods or techniques in leading you in the wrong path. And it's a sleight of hand, it's smoke and mirrors, and many times if you ain't familiar with your Bible, you won't catch it. That's not what I was trying to do. Because 25 years ago, I wasn't as skillful in the Word as I am today. And I can say after almost 30 years in the Word, I absolutely know nothing. I know nothing. So the correct teaching on it, Isaiah 45:7, is this. And I believe it's right. If you look at 45 verse 1, it says, Thus saith the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus. Now the word anointed here is not referring to Cyrus' holiness or his moral character in any sense of that way, because Cyrus was not. He was a very evil man. But it's just referring to his anointed as God using him in his punishment of Israel. And as you got down to verse 7, because this has to do with Cyrus, because God was using Cyrus in the punishment of Israel. When you get down to verse 7, 45:7, where it says, I form light and create darkness, I make peace and create evil, I the Lord do all these things. When it says I form light, it's not referring, as we would see in the New Testament, with Jesus says, I'm the light of the world, or I came to bring light. It has nothing to do with that. This light here, because it's prophetic language, it's just referring to the peace, the prosperity, the knowledge, because we know all knowledge that doctors has is by the grace of God. It's for the benefit of man. It just, everything that is good comes from that light, the heavenly light. You know, that's how I see that. And create darkness is the totally opposite of what light is. But it's just showing that create likeness and darkness, that God is under control. God is in all things. God is in control of all things that happen. And what happened to Israel, in the verse 1, it used the word anointed. God was using Cyrus, who was an evil man, in a chastisement of Israel. He was using, well, let me explain that in a second. When you get down to I make peace and create evil, the word evil, as I already explained, means calamity, adversity, grief, affliction, misery. I think I might have named a couple others, but it is never used in a sense of sin. It's never used in a sense of sin, that word ra. It simply refers to, like I said, calamity, diversity, stress, and trouble. And it just simply, how do I want to put this? How evil brings this not evil, but this darkness, the opposite of light, will bring calamity and diversities and stress and trouble into your life. And here is referring, is bringing brought up on Israel for the chastisement of Israel. And it's showing us how God used Cyrus to the punishment of Israel. And here we have God using evil to his advantage. God did not create evil. We know that from other places in the Bible. But God can use certain evil to his advantage. I probably shouldn't say this, but let me put something this way. How could you have known the love and tender mercy of God if you did not know sin first? How would you have known? How could you have appreciated all that God is if you have not known the opposite of it first? Yeah, but that's another. I was getting a little bit of Hebrew thinking there. Let me leave that there. But basically, I just want to apologize to you, anyone that ever seen the video. I taught it one time in a church about 30 years ago. And, like 4 or 5 years later, I finally got around making some notes. And I see when I was going back through my paperwork that I used it wrongfully. I taught it wrong. What I said about the law of sowing and reaping is very true. But it has nothing to do But Isaiah 45:7. This prophetic language is really hard to interpret. Uh, it's very hard. But so I just want to make a correction on that and apologize. And this is probably the second time in 30 years I ever had to go back and correct something. It's not major. It's not a salvation issue. But still, if I ever say anything wrong and I'm aware of it, I'm going to make it right. It's just the way things should be. We shouldn't be so prideful that we cannot apologize or correct ourselves, because everything we say to somebody else, we're going to stand before God someday for it. And anything you say, no matter how small or insignificant you might think it is, that had an effect on somebody's life, you're going to stand in judgment for an awesome God. So if you ever make a mistake and you're aware of it, never be so prideful that you can't correct it. So I'll apologize, and what I'm telling you now I believe to be right. And it's kind of hard. Prophetic language is hard to understand. And so I leave it there, and we'll leave it at that. And I thank you for your time and for your understanding, and God bless.